All right, guys, the snow is bad. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna do something nice and easy. We're gonna do tail presses and nose presses, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do them. Every butter trick you've ever seen, there's a tail press or nose press in there by definition. If you wanna do good board slides, you have to kind of be able to press it onto one foot or the other. If you wanna even just have good board control generally for turning, you should be able to tail press or nose press. So literally everything in your entire snowboarding life, having tail press and nose press mechanics memorized and dialed in is huge. So that's what I'm gonna teach you guys how to do today. And hopefully start you on the freestyle journey. First and most important thing of any trick, what's the trick? Well, this is a nose press. Pretty simple, I'm pressing on the nose of my snowboard. And then if I wanna do a tail press, this is a tail press. You'll notice a couple things about when I do it. So on any press, a nose press or a tail press, what you want to do is take your hip and pretend like you're trying to touch it to that part of your snowboard. So you see I'm sinking my hip down towards the nose. Now I have this nice low press. I could hold this, not forever because my quad's gonna get tired. So the way that I press higher is I can actually extend my leg and pull with this leg. But if I want just a nice controlled press, the idea is to stay really, really low. You'll notice I can get my hip pretty close to the nose of my snowboard without pressing. But that's partly because right now I'm purposely keeping my hip square. If I let my right hip come up and I pull on that leg a little bit, now it's a nose press. You'll notice my chest is upright. It doesn't come like this. It doesn't come over the nose like this, leaning like this. You'll notice it's not really making my press any higher, but it is making it harder to balance and harder to see where I'm going. So it's really important to get that chest upright as you're doing all this. My chest can be upright, pointed mostly at the sky, or you can see like I'm actually tilting my shoulder down towards the nose. You can get away with that to a certain extent, but it will, if you go too far, make it really hard to pop out of. So your goal is to land in a position on your nose press or tail press where your spine is more or less upright. You're having some tension in your leg that's pulling up, and then you're in a nice, strong, slightly bent position here, trying to sink your hip towards that nose of your snowboard. And you'll find that sweet spot on your board where you can hold that press for a long time. I could sit here all day, except for the fact that my groin muscle kind of hurts because I pulled it yesterday. Okay, so one thing I recommend if you're gonna try to take this to a box, so you've done them a couple of times on snow, take your board 1 foot, chop in a little line. This is just a visual marker, it doesn't need to be that deep. And then go up 6 feet, 8 feet, however long you think the box is that you're gonna try it on, and chop in another line. Now you kind of have a little imaginary box to work with, and you go up to try and practice your nose press or tail press. You know how long you need to actually hold it for. If you can do it and you can get from one line to the next line, well, you know mentally that you can do it on the box. You'll notice I didn't press very high. Pressing any higher than that makes it more difficult to hold for a long time. And you're not looking to get like the sickest, steeziest, highest press the very first time. You should get really good at holding it for a long duration. And then when you want to learn how to tweak it higher, that's the second step that you can take. Now I'm gonna do the reverse and show you guys what a tail press is gonna look like. Same thing, except now I'm gonna pop more off of 2 feet rather than an ollie. You can ollie into a tail press, and if you were hitting like a proper urban on feature, you would have to. I want to talk a little bit about that moment when you take off. An ollie looks like this. My front foot pulls up, and then now I'm higher than the lip is, right? What I want to see is something like this, where you ride. I'm holding enough tension through the tail of my snowboard that I come off of the lip like this. You'll see on an urban on feature, this would put you in a spot where you could hop onto the feature. But on a box, it's gonna give you this. Right when your tail snaps off the end, you're gonna have this much space to drop. And in that amount of time, that's when you shift to your nose or shift to your tail. It gives me a nice controlled takeoff makes me have to slide less of the feature, and also makes balancing easier because I have more time to get into the proper position before I land. When you're first learning, you might just ride onto the box without popping at all and then shift into tail press. That's fine, that's a good place to start. But ultimately what we're trying to do is pop into the press and pop out of the press. So I'm gonna go ahead and, you know what, I could just give you guys perfect demos and cut out anything that didn't work perfectly, but I have a really stiff board and I'm making some mistakes, and I think those can be useful. So there, I got towards the nose of my snowboard, but I did not go far enough. I also kind of had my hips level instead of pulling that back hip up, which is natural because it's really scary to pull that back hip up because you feel like you're gonna fall forward. But in order to get that flex out of this snowboard, I'm gonna have to do that. A little bit of pop. I think I should recap the steps from step 1 to the final step of actually doing it on a box. And then of course, once you've done it on a box, you can try doing it on a ride-on rail and then try doing it on an urban-on rail and kind of build your way up from there. But that's kind of a whole other video, is how to take tricks from boxes up to rails. And progress the same trick onto different features. I think that's going to be its own video. But for this video, for the nose press, tail press video, the steps are: start by doing it with your board on flat. You could even do it with your board off, but if you can't feel the flex of your board, I think it's pretty useless. So strap in both feet on a flat section, try these, and don't just try them, spend like 5 to 10 minutes of like concentrated effort popping in and out of tail presses, popping in and out of nose presses. If it takes you 30 minutes in the morning to warm this up so that you can land on that sweet spot every time, it will pay off when you go to do it on a box. Your muscle memory will kick in. So I think it's really easy for people to do the easy part of a progression fairly quickly and just want to move on. And I get that. But really, if you want to learn and you want to get better fast, do the easy thing until it's unconscious. How many reps do you think you could get up doing a nose press and a tail press on flat in 10 minutes? You could do like 100. You could hold a nose press for, 60 seconds. And in what situation can you hold a nose press for 60 seconds while going down the hill? You can't. It's just not possible. Holy cow, guys. That was crazy. So step 1, do it static with both feet in. Get the reps up. Hold it for 30 seconds. Hold it for a minute if you can. Learn where that spot is. Pop in and out of it. Try popping in from an ollie. Try popping in from 2 feet. Try popping in from an ollie. Experiment with all those things. And then do the same thing, riding slowly on snow. Then do that slowly on snow, but with some markers to tell you, here's when the feature starts, here's where the feature ends. So you can practice the setting up straight, making sure that you hold it for the length of the feature, and then getting off of the feature. Because that ultimately is going to be still part of the difficulty, especially if you've only just started hitting boxes a couple days ago and you're already trying to nose press or tail press. Setting up for the box can be difficult. You need to have your momentum directed towards the end of the feature. And to think about that, and then also think about the nose press or tail press, can start to get complicated. So practicing that on snow as many times as you can before you take it to the feature, super useful. And then when you've done that and it's gone successfully a bunch of times in a row, you're ready to try it on the box. For all of these things, I highly suggest do the tail press variation first and then go to the nose press. And when it comes to doing it on the feature, I might even suggest to just do the tail press for like a whole day and then maybe the next day do nose press, because nose press is going to take a lot of time. I mean, you saw me, like, I can do a nose press on a box, but it took me a lot of attempts. And part of that is because I have a really stiff board, but also part of that is because it's a much harder trick. Like, this is the same stiff board that I did the tail press on, So yeah, take your time with it. I hope that you guys have figured out at least how to do a press, even if it's just on flat, because it will open up everything in your freestyle repertoire.
Feeling like my life been in a limbo, I'm driving like I don't got any windows. I groove my head, it's long to feel the wind blow.